Good evening and welcome to the Kim B. Davis Show. I'm your host, Kim B. Davis. And this evening, I have the pleasure of having author Onyx King on. And she has written a few books. She also has battled COVID and survived. And so we're going to talk about her journey with COVID, and we're going to talk about her book and her experiences and get some clarity on that. But first, I want to greet Onyx. Good evening, Onyx. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for being on the Kim B. Davis Show.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to be here.
All right, so let's get to it. So 2020 has been a crazy year. COVID hit probably before March, but when March hit, it was sort of when we were first alerted and we all went into a lockdown. And everybody kept talking about, well, COVID is like the flu and everybody should stop panicking. And the more we went on, then it was everybody has to wear a mask everywhere. And people were saying, oh, I don't want to wear a mask. It's uncomfortable, blah, blah, blah. And I want to go and do all the things that I want to do. But then we saw in the spring that cases were popping up because people were going to bars and hanging out and partying and doing all kinds of things. Yeah. And I kept saying, guys, it's people. We cannot be around each other. When we're around each other, COVID gets us. And we see in 2020, 200,000 plus people have died. Yesterday was our election. And we as a nation are struggling with leadership in defining what the pandemic, the severity of the pandemic is. So you had it. I want you to share with us your experience. Do you see it as something that is sort of like the flu, or was it something more than that?
Well, it began, I thought that I had just had a really bad cold in the beginning. Oh, wow. So, and then I thought I was going to work and, I just started feeling really tired and, I was coughing really, really bad. And yeah, it was like a cold. And then I thought, oh no, it's not the cold, because I started aching really, really bad. Mm-hmm. So I said, oh no, this is the flu, and I thought, oh, it's gotta be. And then it just would not get better. Mm. And I'm not saying it went on for a long time. It went on for 2 weeks is a long time to be sick like that. Mm-hmm. And it just started to get worse every day. And it got to the point where I couldn't even go back to work. It was like, I can't do anything. Wow. And my fiance was giving me all the medicine that you can think of that's on the drugstore shelves. He tried every single thing to give me, and it just wouldn't get better. And this cough just was hanging on there, and I just got worse and worse and worse. And we thought, well, wow, what is this? We had no idea what it was. Finally, it got so bad that I could not take one step. That's how exhausted I was. And I was coughing so bad that it was just like caving in my chest and my back, and it hurt so bad. And I was like, this is not a cold, it's not the flu, I don't know what this is. Mm. So I went to the hospital, and they said, well, and this was back in March when I got admitted on March 30th. They said, well, we're admitting you because you have double pneumonia. And when they admitted me to the hospital, they said, you have double pneumonia. So I was okay. And I was in the hospital, and then 2 days later, the doctor walked in my room in full hazmat gear.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's how I thought, what is this? And that's when he told me, he said, you don't have pneumonia, you have COVID-19. He said, and right now, he said, I've dressed this way because I don't know anything about this. Nobody does. Wow. And there's no cure. Yeah, wow. That's how it happened with me.
And so what were your thoughts at that moment?
Well, at that moment, I was afraid. I was in a brand new relationship that's just now really serious.
Okay.
So, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I'm getting ready to get married. I'm just now getting my life together. Things are finally looking up for me, but I'm gonna die, because that is the look the doctor had on his face. When he walked in that room, he had a look on his face like he was getting ready to tell somebody, you're not waking up tomorrow.
Wow.
And that scared me. And I am the type of person I'm a real timid. I get scared. Like, I'm still scared of the dark. So, I mean, I get scared really easy. So this was like on a whole nother level. Now, I'm a Christian. I believe in the Lord. And at that time, I hate to tell you, my faith was gone.
I'm sure
Because
you were
it was
you
gone.
were rocked with fear.
Yes, I haven't been that afraid ever. I haven't been that afraid ever. Well, when my fiance got admitted to the hospital as well, then I was probably more scared than I was in the beginning, because it just got worse and worse, and it was really bad.
So you were admitted.
Uh-huh.
2 days later, your doctor comes in with hazmat gear and
Yes.
says that you have COVID. They don't know anything about it. At
Nope.
that point, was your fiance, was he sick? Did he show
Well,
any signs?
when he was taking care of me, he was sick.
Oh,
He was sick
wow.
as well. But we thought it was a cold.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought, I'm just doing everything I can to take care of her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we thought it was a cold. And when I went to the hospital and got admitted, because I kept my cell phone in my hand because I didn't care. But once I found out what it was, because, of course, back then, everybody had been talking about COVID, but
Mm-hmm.
nobody really thought it was real.
Mm-hmm.
When the doctor told me that, and when I called him and told him, you need to come to the hospital, because he was really sick anyway. So I
Okay.
said, this is probably what you have as well. And he came to the hospital. Sure enough, we were on the same ICU.
Wow. So you were on a ventilator and all of that, or no?
No,
Okay.
no,
Okay,
no.
good. Good, good, good. Okay.
Yeah. That's one thing that I've learned. The people that I've learned in my life that actually went on the ventilator, those are the ones it seems like didn't make it.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized what happens is, like, I was in the hospital for 8 days. Now, my fiance was in the hospital for about 20 days, 22 days.
Okay.
And he came home and was on oxygen at home even.
Wow.
Yeah, so, I mean, an ambulance brought him home, and I had to have home oxygen set up for him before he could come home, before the doctors would discharge him.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had to quarantine from each other in the house,
Wow.
which was, I mean, it was just a whole different thing. But the people that I knew about and that I've met in different support groups that actually went on a ventilator didn't make it.
Wow.
Those of us who made it, without going on that ventilator, and it was hard. A lot of times, I remember I just talk about this in my book about, being in the hospital and the doctor standing right next to my bed, and I couldn't breathe.
Mm.
And then there was nothing he could do.
Wow.
See, that's something to be there. It's like, I was laying in the hospital bed and the doctor was standing right there. My O2 sats was just going way down. It hurt so bad, and the doctor was standing right there, and there was nothing he could do.
So with all that technology, all that knowledge, all
Yep.
of that skill,
There was nothing nobody could do.
nothing. But that's where God showed up. And God
Yes, right.
said,
That's right.
you gonna come through this and you gonna be all right. It's gonna be hard, but I got you.
Yes, it's going to be hard. And I think about that. And when I was released, I was, I felt better, but my fiance was still there,
Mm-hmm.
and he was still battling.
And he was there for longer than
Yes.
you were there. So you got
Yes,
sick first. You got
I
sick
got
first,
sick first.
and
Uh-huh.
then he got it. Now, did
Yep.
they do contract or contact tracing to see who you guys have been around? Did they have to
Well,
go through?
I was a manager of a really big grocery store chain.
Okay.
So we didn't know. They kind of tried, I mean, it was huge. I mean, I was probably the biggest grocery store chain in America. It's where I was a manager. And I had counted by hand like almost $70,000.
Oh,
So
wow.
about just a few days before I got sick. So, and when I told the Center for Disease Control all of those things, they were like, oh man, it could have been from anyone.
Mm-hmm.
This is before you go into these grocery stores where they have all these shields up. See, when I got sick, they didn't have any shields up.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have practices where you could even wear a mask working in the store.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not, it's. I'm sorry, I don't know what happened.
It's okay. So you were saying they didn't have the shields up, they didn't have the mask yet. Were they using hand sanitizer?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Now, I was the store I was working in. I mean, the toilet paper was flying off the shelves. All the disinfectant was flying off the shelves. Hand sanitizer. Now, I always use that personally because as a woman, I mean, we usually carry those little cute things in our
Mm-hmm.
purse. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had it and I was using it because, but it wasn't like a really big thing. I was not even allowed to wear a mask at work because, they didn't want anybody to think they could get sick like that coming into the store.
Right. Right.
So
Wow.
when I got sick, that was before all of these safety practices came into play.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you talk about the ventilator. Is there anything else, or are there other things that you learned about COVID that you did not know or is not regularly talked about?
What I have learned, and this is one thing that has scared me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I talk about my fiance and how, he had it worse than me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the loneliness. But a lot of people talk about that, but just being home, I'm on quarantine myself and I'm afraid because I don't know if he's going to make it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And then he coming home and then having to be separated from him, that was still hard.
Mm-hmm.
And then even now, today, and this is November, the
Mm-hmm.
after effects for him, not only him, but for myself. Like I said, I was a manager for a large grocery store chain. If I had to stand up and run around the front of a store for 8 hours every day today, I couldn't do it.
Wow. So you're still feeling that?
I'm still feeling that. And he is, on the other, has not even been able to go back to work yet
Wow.
because he gets tired out and he's fine. He has a clean bill of health as far as the COVID is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
But he makes, if he can do one major project a day, that's it, because he's exhausted afterwards. And so it's kind of weird for me how we're in the same house. We both had the same thing, right? Supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm better, but he's just not there. He's
Wow.
not there yet.
Wow.
So that's a lot. I mean, but by the grace of God, we are both still alive.
Mm-hmm.
But
Amen.
just to watch the different examples, you
Mm-hmm.
know, he is physically just not there yet. Doesn't have it anymore, but he hasn't bounced back the same. And that just really shows me that, hey, it's different for everybody.
And I have heard that about COVID. There was an interesting story I saw about a young woman who was in her late 20s, early 30s. She's like 28, 30, 31 years old. Had COVID, the same thing, thought it was the flu or a cold, and found out it was COVID. And now, because she had an underlying neurological condition that no one had diagnosed, now she's having seizures. And her entire
Wow.
life has been changed by that. And I've heard more than one time where people are sharing stories like that, where if you had hypertension, if you had diabetes, if you had any underlying condition, all of a sudden now it becomes pronounced and you have these complications. Have you had any other side effects outside of being exhausted? Because I understand that, it's sort of like, and it's not the same, and I'm not trying to diminish it, but sometimes you'll get a really bad flu and you will be so exhausted and say, oh, I can't even walk up the stairs, and you know that your lungs have been compromised. Are there other things outside of exhaustion, or were you just lucky enough to just have exhaustion?
I was afterwards when I went to the hospital. No, I mean there was flu-like symptoms,
Okay.
and I had a lot of them. And you know what? And when you talk about underlying illnesses, you know, I have one. So
Okay.
how come I'm not that sick? I have sickle cell anemia.
Oh, wow.
So what happened, right? Now
Mm.
my fiance, on the other hand, though, he's a survivor of cancer. So but and so that even scares me more so.
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm.
So it's like, wow, well, they never talk about that.
Right.
They say, because I have I have a terminal disease. You would think it would have flared me all up and maybe taken me on out of here, but it just did not. Where my fiance, on the other hand, it knocked him down and he is crawling trying to get up.
Wow. I think there's still a lot about COVID-19 that we don't yet understand,
Yeah.
how it impacts people And I don't know what those reasons are. And I think that's one of the concerns that we have in the medical community, because of the fear of African Americans about being treated as guinea pigs and not wanting to share information because of the distrust and mistrust in the system. And we've seen it. There is this fear. And I don't know how to get around that. And, but COVID to me it is such an interesting um, disease because it does impact people differently.
Yes,
And
it
so
does.
if you don't know, if you aren't sure of how it's going to treat someone, because it treats everybody differently, how do you treat the disease itself? Because flu typically works the same. Measles, mumps, chickenpox, all those diseases typically work the same, but COVID seems to be something different. That's
What we've learned by listening, talking to the doctors and the CDC is that because it mutates.
Quickly then.
So yes, it mutates. So that is why it was such a hard time with, different diseases that help because
Mhm.
it mutates. You may not have the same strain. It's the same as I think about people that have HIV,
Mhm.
how HIV, it mutates. It's different for everyone. You might have HIV and have HIV-K, the K strain, but this other person has HIV, the H strain.
Wow.
It's the same thing. And this COVID is just reminding me of that.
Okay.
I feel like, I had, the after effects because, like I said, I don't have the energy to do the things I used to do. Not only do I know that I could not run around the store, but I'm a singer. So I know I can't belt things out. There's a lot of things I can't do. Where
Mm.
my fiance, on the other hand, like I said, he is exhausted.
Wow.
And he is still in a lot of pain, a lot, because that is another thing that COVID, whatever is the weakest area in your body, let's say you have some part of your body, let's say you have a hernia, let's
Mhm.
say you have arthritis real bad in your left shoulder, it's going to attack right there. So
Really?
yes, it's going to make that pain. Like if you had a hernia or you have just regular arthritic pain in your shoulder, and maybe your pain level is like a 1 or a 2, COVID's going to make that like a 10.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
that is something. And I thought that was just me, but my fiance has experienced that as well. And I know it has affected him differently, but that is one thing that has affected us the same. You know, the flu-like symptoms, and what if you have a weak part of your body, that's where it attacks.
Interesting. So I have a question for you. So you were cleared of COVID. Did the doctor
Uh-huh.
say your lungs were clear, or you?
Yes.
Okay. Did they
Yes.
say that your lungs have been compromised at any point?
Well, yes, they did. They were my left lung was totally shut down when when I was in the hospital. Now I had to have, because like I said, I worked in a large grocery store chain. I had to have 2 negative tests before I could go back to work.
Mm-hmm.
So I was tested twice.
Wow.
And I went back to work for 1 week and I said, I cannot do this.
I understand. I
Yeah.
understand.
And so that's how we knew without a shadow of a doubt. I wasn't tested just one time, I was tested twice. I
Wow.
didn't have it. But that
Incre-
is the after effects. Yeah.
Incredible. If you could tell people something about COVID, what would you tell them?
What I tell everybody that I meet about those masks.
Say it for the people in the
There's a
back of the
mask.
room.
Ooh, those masks are uncomfortable. You don't like them. But I promise you, having COVID is worse than you could imagine. And it is worth that discomfort. And what I would really tell people is this, though. The doctors don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But even people who don't believe, you better believe it's somebody else. Because if the doctors don't have an answer and they can't save you, somebody else has to.
That's
So
right.
whether you even believe in Jesus or not, you're going to call on somebody. You might as well give him a try, because
Mm-hmm.
I know that is the only way you can win. That's the only way you're going to make it. You think
Wow.
about it. When I was in the hospital, you could even have a visitor.
True. Mm-hmm.
You couldn't even have a visitor.
Mm-hmm.
So could you imagine being that sick? They're saying, we don't know. And nobody can even come and visit.
I've read stories about people on their deathbed who are dying, and
Yeah.
family is literally in the parking lot trying to talk to somebody on the phone because somebody snuck a phone in, because that's all they could do.
I had my cell phone and I just used to clutch it because that was my only link.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a young girl. She was a nurse, but she was a young nurse. She was young. She came in my room one day. I wrote about that in my book as well. She
Mm-hmm.
sat down and just began to weep because not only did she have to be a nurse, she had to be that missing family member.
Mm-hmm.
She had to be that chaplain. It was just being in that hospital. It was horrible. Just to know I'm in this room and 2 doors down from me, somebody just died.
Wow.
From the same thing. I mean, that's how serious it is.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's how serious it was.
Mm-hmm.
What if I could tell everybody one thing, people think, no, this is a hoax. It's not real. It is real. Please don't get it. All you can do is protect yourself because it is real and you will get it.
What do you say to people who say, and I know you just said it, that people think it's a hoax, but what about people who say, well, I'm wearing my mask, I don't have it, no one in my house has it, so we're going out to eat, or I'm going to get on an airplane because I'm tired of being at home and I'm tired of this lockdown and I need a break?
You do need a break, okay? I know you think you do, but what about, because you see how they don't really know anything about COVID?
Mm-hmm.
They don't know about it. So what if just 5 minutes before you got to the very spot you're going to stand in line at while you're waiting to be set at a table or set sometime on an airplane, a person that was standing right there did have COVID and caught? You don't know. They don't know how long the bacteria or the virus or whatever it is, they don't know how long it lasts in the air.
Mm-hmm.
There are some people who catch COVID-19 and don't have any symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not wearing a mask at all either.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're just like you. They're tired of being at home. Well, they're sick and don't know it. So what if you encounter something like that and you don't have on a mask? Then what? Is it going to be better? Because if you're laid up in a hospital bed and your family can't get to you, oh, you're going to be tired of that then. Then you're going to be tired.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is just the only thing that I can think of when I hear people. I just want to go out. And I have a first cousin of mine. We're really close, and she's an extrovert. She's like, I'm tired of this. I can't do it. Yeah, you can. Because if you're sick, like I was sick, if you get it, you're going to know. And you're laid up in a hospital bed and can't nobody come, then you're going to be tired of that for real.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you're going to be by yourself and you're not going to be able to breathe. Then you're going to be by yourself for real.
Mm-hmm. I am an extrovert, also Onyx, but I haven't been anywhere.
Please don't go nowhere. Don't do it. Don't do it.
And I, I've had conversations with friends and other people. Well, Kim, what you been up to? I said, dude, we've been at home. And they look at me and they're like, but Kim, you like to be around. I said, I do like to be around people, but that disease scares me. I said, I don't want that. I said, I have talked to people, I've read stories, I've seen it. My husband works in the hospital, and there came a point in time when we really had to have a conversation, because one day he broke down because he was working in the emergency or in the emergency room in mental health. And he was hearing the codes and, doing just like the nurse did, holding someone's hand because they were having a mental issue while they were having COVID. And he was like, this is too much.
And it's a lot.
It is a lot. And I said to him, I said, listen, we'll be okay. We will figure something out. God will provide. I said, if you can't do this, I said, because my fear is you will be exposed to something and then bring it home. By the grace of God, he has not, or he's been tested. He's been exposed a few times, but by the grace of God, we've been covered and nothing has happened.
That is another thing, because you know what? I brought it home. My fiance, I brought it home. My fiance wasn't sick. I brought that home. I brought that disease home to us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is another thing that people need to be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
You can bring it home.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, some people don't have symptoms, you don't know, and they just carry it. And everywhere you go, we are touching
kids. Have you seen the kids? And if you go in the grocery store, you'll see their mother with a mask on, but the kids don't have one on.
And trust me, Onyx, whenever we had to do a grocery run, because that would be, I'm like, okay, we're doing a grocery run, and this is gonna be our adventure. Everybody mask up, glove up, hand sanitizer. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like being in a horror movie where you prepare yourself. But I remember getting so anxious every time we walked into the store because I had to continuously tell my children, keep your mask up. It's hot. Keep your mask up. Keep your mask up. Don't touch your face. Don't, you just touch the basket. Don't touch, and I was like, oh, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. It
And
just,
people are getting lax right now, and I don't want people to. So, but all I can do is just shake my head. I think, okay, because people are dying. It is that serious.
200,000 plus people in the United States alone have died of this
Yeah.
disease. And what we've seen is that it started in the urban areas, and Black and brown people were greatly impacted initially in the beginning. Now it has hit the rural areas. And I'm
Yep.
reading the same accounts from rural doctors who are saying we are overwhelmed. And so
Yes.
when we have presidential election and we have rallies and events, and they call super spreaders because people are relying on this herd immunity, I'm like, do you know how many people are going to die from that? They have
Yeah.
speculated that 90,000 plus people could perish before the end of the year, and it's November.
Wow. Wow.
And
It
so
is very scary.
it's very scary. It's very scary. Um, and this is the reality of where we are. But before we continue, I want you to talk to us about your book, because you shared your experience in your book.
Yeah.
And I want you to, if you have your book, show us the cover, tell us about it, and tell us what you hope that people will learn from reading your book.
Here's my book, Pandemic. And what I hope people will get, actually, let me tell you how it even came to be.
Yes.
Just like we're having a conversation right now, a lot of people were asking you different questions. How did you know you had it? What happened when you had it? And it started out, well, actually, I was journaling through the whole process because I am a writer already.
Mm-hmm.
Writing comes naturally for me. So when I have feelings that are real hard, I write them down. So the only thing I did was, when I just bound my journal, pages from my journal, and made it into a book.
Awesome.
Yeah, so you can find Pandemic on Amazon right now,
Mm-hmm.
and just type in Pandemic, and my book will come up, and you can get my book Pandemic on Amazon right now.
Excellent, excellent. Now you've also written another book, correct? You have two
Oh,
or three books.
I have several, and I actually get ready to put out another one.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So tell us quickly about those.
Okay, my very first book was entitled The Girl That Glows. I'm a survivor of severe child abuse, sexual, physical, mental, and that was my very first book. It tells my life story, even religious abuse.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Only by the grace of God that I'm here today and that I am saved today. Because if it goes by the things that I went through growing up, that wouldn't be either.
Mm-hmm.
The Girl That Glows is available on lulu.com.
Okay.
That's my very first book. And it seems like I've written books about the experiences that I had. I wrote another book, A Basket Full of Lemons. I had a really bad experience with my oldest child. She became very ill with a deadly disease.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote about the experience that I've had as a result of that.
Mm-hmm.
And A Basket Full of Lemons was born. I mean, it seems like the book that I'm getting ready to put out right now, I'm giving you guys a little sneak peek. It's called Even Me.
Mm-hmm.
It talks about, growing up in the foster care system. Talks about how hard that is. And it just talks about that. And even after that, because see, my mind is spinning right now. I'm thinking about Pandemic 2, talking about getting my fiance's side of the story, and also adding more of this after effects with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm thinking already. Like I said, I'm getting ready to put this book out now, and another book is already forming in the back of my mind. It's already
Doesn't
forming.
it work like that?
Yeah, it does.
That is fantastic. You know, I was just thinking as I'm listening to you tell your story, how blessed by God you are. Yes, you went through child abuse, but it didn't kill you, it didn't defeat you. You went through physical and sexual abuse and religious abuse, yet it didn't kill you, it didn't defeat you. You were in the foster care system and faced many challenges, yet it didn't kill you, it didn't defeat you. And here you are with COVID. And I felt that moment when you said, when the doctor stood there and said, we don't know anything about this. And you said you felt like he was telling you you're about to die, but
Yeah.
it didn't kill you and it didn't defeat you. And you're here. And so your job is to continue to tell that testimony of how God has touched your life.
Wow. Yeah. That's what I think. I do. That is my job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because I wouldn't have a testimony without a test. So all these things that I've gone through, just so that I can give a more powerful testimony for the glory of God. I mean, all
Absolutely.
of these things, I mean, we just need to realize, even COVID-19,
Mm-hmm.
even this election, and all of these things that are going on,
Mm-hmm.
I promise you, Jesus is the answer. And I've been through a lot in my life.
Mm-hmm.
There is no way you can make it,
You can't.
you know, because you can't. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I could not live. You know, I talk about child abuse, and I want you to know I was literally living in a physical cage as a child.
Wow.
That is how hard it is. But I'm going to tell you something. You can still make it because God will give you the strength that you need. You know, even though a lot of people think, oh, I got to know how to do some fancy prayer like they do at church, or I have to do it. No,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
all you got to do is say, Lord, help me with a
Eh,
sincere heart, and He'll hear you.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He'll hear you, and He will help you.
Mm-hmm.
And I just know that I've seen so many times. I can tell you, COVID was the worst thing, huh? Yeah, living in a cage as a kid was also a pretty bad thing. Growing up with the self-esteem I had was the worst thing, I think. Finding a dead body as a child,
Wow.
another foster kid, that was a pretty bad thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I just can remember, oh, being in federal prison for 22 years because my ex-husband was a drug dealer. That was a bad thing. But you know what? When I finally said, Lord, I can't do this, and I didn't know, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I did not know.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this, I talk about that in my very first book, The Girl That Glows. I was laying on the floor in the hole,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, you know what? I have had it. I've been through too much. I can't take it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
better come down here and save me right now.
That's right.
That's what I said, just
Mm-hmm.
like that. Now, did the shoe doors open and did I get out of prison or get out of the hole? No, that didn't happen. But what I had really been looking for my entire life flowed over my whole body, and that was peace.
Mm-hmm.
For the first time,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't trade that peace with anyone or anything for nothing in the world
Mm-hmm.
because it flowed over me. And I knew at that moment that somebody was with me. And yes, bad things happen to me, yes. And they happen to all kinds of people. But I promise you, it feels so much better when you know that you know that you know that you're not in it alone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what's brought me through.
That's why it's important to hear the word, study the word, believe, be baptized, and follow God's word because you need all the protection that you can get. Thank you for sharing your story, Onyx. It is a pleasure to listen to it. We got to have you come back on the show and talk about some of that child and sexual abuse if you're up to it. Because one of the things that we like to do
Absolutely.
on the Kim B. Davis show, we want to promote healing. And we recognize that there are so many people that have your story, not your exact story, but so many people that I talk to, specifically women who were sexually abused as a child or physically abused as a child and go through these things and then grow up and have overcome them. But then you have some people who struggle because they're still trapped with that pain. And so we have to help each other get past that because that's the only way that we can heal and
That's
grow.
the only
And
way.
then we got to help somebody else
Yeah.
heal and grow. So Thank you, Onyx. Now tell us where we can find you. Remind us where we can find your books. How do we
You
reach
can
you?
you can reach me. You can find my book Pandemic on Amazon. Just put in Pandemic, and my book will come up. Also, the other books that I've written, they're on Lulu.com. You have to put in. You can put in The Girl That Glows by Onyx. You can put in Onyx, Onyx, and they'll bring up my earlier works of fiction or nonfiction or however they are. Also, you can email me. You can send me an email if you'd like at onyxking, the number 4 at gmail.com. You can also, if you'd like, send me a friend request on Facebook, Onyx King. I gladly accept it, and we can talk anytime.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Onyx King, for sharing your story of COVID. I'm encouraging everyone to please wear your mask, practice social distancing, use sanitizer, and stay home. Eat
Yes,
your
yes.
veggies, drink your water, and take your vitamins. But thank you, Onyx, for being on. We hope to see you again on another show where we can talk some more. Thank you again for watching the Kim B. Davis Show and taking a listen. We hope that you've enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you on our next one. And as always, remember, be magnificent.